following presentation is for educational purposes only. All of the symbols, trading ideas, and live trading are for demonstrational purposes and are not recommendations or trading advice. Past performance may not be indicative of future results. All of the information and opinions expressed by third-party guests are their own and are not necessarily those of NinjaTrader LLC. Trading futures involve substantial risk and may not be suitable for everyone, and trading futures can result in losses greater than the initial required margin. Traders should only trade futures with risk capital. Risk capital is money that you can afford to lose without jeopardizing your financial security or current lifestyle. You can find additional disclosure information on the NinjaTrader website.
Well, welcome back, everybody. And that was a great segment. Tom, with Anthony. It's great to have him back.
Yeah, fun.
So we're trying something a little bit differently today. We are what we're doing is we're creating these smaller 15-minute segments. The idea here is to get more different kinds of content and just kind of mix it up a little bit, but with a little bit smaller segments. And today we have two new segments. The first segment is a Trader Book Club, which we'll get started with in a minute, where Jim and Tom and I will talk about our favorite trading books, books that kind of shaped our trading and our style and our philosophy. And then right after this, Tom and I will do Ichimoku Cloud market review. In that session, we'll just take a look at a bunch of different markets, looking through the lens of the Ichimoku Cloud. So, and we'll be adding new different kinds of segments to these 15-minute, to these 15-minute kind of events through the rest of the year. So we'll experiment with that. So let's get started with Trader Book Club. I'm going to hold each of you to 4 minutes, so that kind of splits it up. We each get 4 minutes here to talk about our book. So Jim, you're up first.
Awesome. Well, so this is such a great idea. There's so many good books, and as I started thinking about this idea, a lot of really good books are old, right? So I'm going to talk about Mark Douglas. Now, Mark Douglas wrote a book in 1990. That was 34 years ago, crazy long time ago, called The Disciplined Trader: Developing Winning Attitudes, right? And the second part of that title is almost more important than the first part. But that was his book he wrote in 1990. And keep in mind, there was no electronic trading. There was no screen trading, right? If you were charting, you were either doing it on your own or, taking data from the Wall Street Journal or subscribing to a service and getting faxes. There used to be a thing called faxes, and you would get this data. So anyway, he wrote this book, The Disciplined Trader, and you're not going to find a chart in it. You're not going to find any tips on technical analysis. We've got Tom Schneider for that. This is a book on psychology, right? And it's all about psychology and his experience. Now, keep in mind, he was a commodity broker for a long time. It's hard to get a lot of personal information on Mark Douglas, but he was a commodity broker for a long time and also a trader. And then he went on the education circuit and did institutions as well as retail trading. Education on psychology. Now, the amazing thing about this book, everything I've ever heard from psychologists like Gary Dayton, who's awesome, and Creta, who's awesome, already in this book. Now, I don't know, Creta told me she never read the book, which is fine, but it's all based on science, all based on psychology. And, as a matter of fact, if you read the book, he'll talk about FOMO, fear of missing out. I mean, FOMO was a concept in 1990 before screens. It was crazy. So in any event, the book is really good, and it's about yourself. It's about kind of, separating what happens inside and outside your person. It's about, directing a conscious shift in your belief system, right? Because trading is different than maybe regular life. Things you do in regular life, it's definitely a different experience. And so by shifting that conscious belief system and focusing on what you're doing is one of the most important elements that comes across in this book. And he talks about, regular topics like dealing with losses, right? Dealing with losses is hard for all of us. It's not easy for me even. And, it's something we have to, we have to deal with because everyone's going to have losses from time to time. The other thing that I thought was really interesting was he says, become an expert at just one market behavior. because the market behaves as a collective, right? As a group of traders pushing price around, right? And his idea is, hey, become an expert on one thing, right? One thing that you see that happens repeatedly based on market behavior of other traders, and that translates to technical analysis on your chart and fundamental analysis as well as something that the other thing that was really important. I know I only got a couple of seconds left here. Learning to think in terms of probabilities, right, instead of absolutes. Think about probabilities. What's the probability of achieving this price based on my technical analysis versus my stop getting hit? And is that a good probability distribution or not? So there's so much more stuff in this book. I've read it 2.5 times, right? 2.5. I'm still going through it again. And the funny thing about it was, so Mike, when I picked up my old copy of the book, here it is. Here's the one I have, and I looked at sentences that I underlined like 5 years ago, and now I'm underlining different sentences because as I mature as a trader, as a person, other things become more important to me and resonate. So it's a great book. I'm going to highly recommend Mark Douglas, The Disciplined Trader, Developing Winning Attitudes. Oh, Mike, you're muted. You're muted.
Sorry about that. So I have to agree with you. That is a great book. In fact, I could go out on a limb and say that no one should place a trade in the market until they've read that book.
Hallelujah.
Tom, you're up.
So I chose a book that was recommended to me by a mentor that I worked with 25 years ago. And it was, what book would you recommend? He had traded before he got into kind of what we do, which is education and developing software, all that. And his recommendation, without a doubt, was Reminiscences of a Stock Operator. So I can square it up a little bit there. It's by a gentleman by the name of Edwin Lefevre, who wrote about a trader named Jesse Livermore. Now, that's not his name in the book, but it's believed to be Jesse Livermore, who was a very successful trader back in the 1890s to the 1920s. This book was published first time 101 years ago. So why is a 100-year-old book still relevant? Well, Jesse Livermore goes through his thoughts and ideas about placing trades. He had a really interesting career, started as a teenager, writing down the numbers back in the day before the technology we have today, obviously. He was writing numbers on chalkboards at brokerage houses, right? So somebody would read off the ticker tape, he would write the numbers down so that the customers could see the quotes. Very much a tape reader. When we talk about tail of the tape or tape reading, this was tape reading, and he was excellent at it. He said he didn't know what it meant, but he was really good with numbers. So if charting or trading appeals to you because you're a numbers person, it's very much explained in the book why that's to your advantage in some ways. There's a great explanation of how trading just was a part of his life. He was on vacation in Florida. He happened to go, somebody came up to his boat, motorboat, on a motorboat to his relaxation boat and said, the market's moving, you got to come in. And he's on vacation. He goes into the brokerage house. Everybody knows him because he's had a reputation. And he just walks through this, what was happening in the market and why he was contrary to what was going on. He wasn't right, but he wasn't necessarily wrong. But it also just kind of showed how the technology, he would put in a trade. He didn't know if he got filled for quite a while. In fact, 2 days. Because the storms knocked out the power lines. So if you think you might have some difficulty with technology, they really did. He made and lost his fortune, and we're talking big fortunes multiple times. So it was just this great, it's almost like an epic story of a trader back 130 years ago. What's interesting, when he was 14, he needed to scrape up $5, and $5 back then is about, I think it's 100 to 1, so $500 to make his first trade, but then he made the equivalent of $300, and that got him hooked. So really fascinating tale. It's well written. It's not really heavy, but it is kind of in a style of a journalist writing a book about a trader. And I just, come back to it every, like Jim, 5 years ago, every few years, come back to this book and read the stories of a trader from 100 years ago.
Yeah, that is a great book. I have that book on tape, and whenever I took a long flight to Asia, I would listen to that book again. So
Wow.
I love that book. One of my favorite takeaways from that, and that I use, I don't use it as much in my trading as I used to, but I love the concept of, if you're in a good trade, it's okay to take another trade in the same direction. Right. So a
Yes.
lot of people don't do that. They get in, they think the market's already moved enough, they're not going to make another trade. But that was something that he did. If you're in a good trade, add to the trade. So that's a great book. All right, so my book. I want to talk about my absolutely favorite book of all time, and it is New Concepts in Technical Trading Strategies, J. Wells Wilder. This book was published in 1978. There were no computers or anything. It's a true classic on developing technical indicators. So, Wells Wilder is kind of this mythical figure in technical analysis. This book right here is so special. It introduces so many innovative technical indicators and concepts that have stood the test of time, that are still widely used by traders today. Even some of us in this room today are using these same indicators. So this book was developed 45 years ago. He wrote it 45 years. 1978 is when it was published. He was probably working on it before that, of course, but it introduces relative strength index, RSI. It introduces average true range, ATR, parabolic SAR, all the other kind of permutations around that. And it was a way in those days, and again, there's no computers, I can't stress that enough, that this is done handwritten in kind of a spreadsheet format. And, these are tools that, at the time created unique ways of measuring volatility, defining risk, looking for trade setups. And these tools, as I said, created over 45 years ago, are still used today. You can use them on any symbol, you can use them on any interval, and they're just as relevant today as they were 45 years ago. But what really makes this book really great to me is the deep dive into his approach and methodology to all of this. So he kind of really talks you through what he's thinking and how he's developing them. Again, in the book, I don't know if I can just grab it real quick here, but in the book is his actual handwritten spreadsheets and calculations bar by bar, just so you can actually see how that was calculated. It's brilliant. So I can't recommend this book enough. It's New Concepts in Technical Trading Strategies by J. Wells Wilder. It's just an amazing book.
Yep, Mike, that was another book that mentor recommended, and I think we actually had in the office. It's not an easy book to find.
No, this is a first edition, by the way.
Those are hard to find.
So I bought that book in 1985 when I got my first IBM computer. I know you remember the one with the kind of the phosphorus screen, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I was programming those indicators in Microsoft Basic.
Wow.
And but it was complicated. The data wasn't good. I had to put the data in myself, but it was amazing, and it kind of really fueled my passion for technical analysis. If I could pinpoint one thing that really triggered me, it was this book.
Wow.
So the most amazing thing, and I probably should have been paying attention to which books you guys were going to introduce today, but we all pick books that are decades old. It's amazing.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, there's been lots of great books. I mean, and lots of great authors. I mean, you know, we could talk about Larry Williams and John Bollinger and all of these great technical analysts. But everybody kind of started from the books that we're talking about.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, if you think about it, everybody, you know, builds on someone else's work. And that's what makes technical analysis so great.
Yep.
By the
All
way,
right, gentlemen,
Lobo said,
anything else?
by the way, Lobo says he was working with the Commodore C64 back in the day.
That's a difficult task right there.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thanks so much for being part of our first Traders Book Club. We'll be adding this again in a few weeks, as soon as we figure out what books we want to talk about. Jim, Tom, thanks so much for being here. This was fun. This was a great add to what we do.
Yeah, it was fun. I enjoyed it.
All of the symbols, trading ideas, and live trading are for demonstrational purposes and are not recommendations or trading advice. Past performance may not be indicative of future results. All of the information and opinions expressed by third-party guests are their own and are not necessarily those of NinjaTrader LLC. Trading futures involve substantial risk and may not be suitable for everyone, and trading futures can result in losses greater than the initial required margin. Traders should only trade futures with risk capital. Risk capital is money that you can afford to lose without jeopardizing your financial security or current lifestyle. You can find additional disclosure information on the NinjaTrader website.